is FOMOing into Bitcoin. The first event, of course, happened in the world's largest country. They just saw their very first public company adopt Bitcoin. Of course, we are talking about Jet King. They are an Indian company. And then we saw the CEO of a $365 billion company in a very interesting country also say some interesting remarks about Bitcoin. Now, the reason why I think this company is interesting, because they are home or they reside inside of the country that saw this kind of growth in their GDP per capita. And they actually have the third highest GDP per capita in the entire world. So today I want to be talking about what these two very pivotal countries in Asia have to do with Bitcoin and why they are adopting Bitcoin when they are adopting Bitcoin. So let's start off with the first piece of news, which I find awfully interesting. And that is, of course, the $365 billion company in this country here. This is Singapore. We can see Singapore's largest bank. It has $365 billion of assets. Right now is expanding its Bitcoin and crypto trading to over 100,000 clients. Now, this is interesting because of the chart I'm about to show you. This here is looking at the GDP per capita of Singapore. Now, what do we notice about this chart? Why has it gone absolutely parabolic in the 20th century? Well, that is because Singapore created an absolute miracle. They opened up their borders and they benefited from something which I do consider a technology, and that is globalization. That is free trade. I know some people disagree with that statement, but stick around to the end of the stream to watch my explanation on why I do believe free trade and globalization was a form of technology. But all we can see, the point that I want to show you here and why I think this is impactful is because Singapore understands sometimes you make small tweaks and sometimes you adopt strategies that go against the grain. And by doing this, you can get some pretty remarkable results. We can see, if I were to really get a little bit more granular with you guys, I want to show you a little bit more about what exactly is going on in Singapore and why its largest bank is making a move into Bitcoin. So this is the brand new piece of news that I saw spread on Twitter today. And it actually comes from what I believe is a closed door meeting. I'm going to blow this up and I'm going to make it as big as possible so you guys can read what I'm looking at. Have a look at that. This is the Chief Executive Officer. This is a CEO. He was asked in the meeting, what do you invest in? And he says, so you have to be pragmatic. But the large part of my net worth is in one stock. He goes on to talk about different asset classes, different dividends and yields you can return. But then at the very end of this little transcript that was tweeted out by Matthew Siegel, that's right, the one and the only Matthew Siegel, we can see at the very bottom, he says, Bitcoin gave me more. Bitcoin gave me 300% opposed to most people's 10 or 12% returns that they are accustomed to in TradFi. So we do know that DBS Bank, Singapore's largest bank, has been expanding their Bitcoin services for a little bit of a long time. Again, this article here is from September 2022. And I really am interested in Singapore because we do know that Singapore has one of the larger sovereign wealth funds in the entire world. And now we have the CEO of DBS Bank kind of confirming what we've suspected here for a little while. And that is the fact that the dude is a Bitcoiner. He's not just offering these trading services at his bank to capitalize on a trend. This is everybody's biggest critique, I should say, sorry, or let's call it a question surrounding Larry Fink. A lot of people think Larry Fink is just jumping on what he believes is the next big trend. A lot of people don't quite believe Larry Fink when he says all of these bullish things about Bitcoin. But I do think we should be watching what these people are doing and saying in these interviews and saying behind closed doors, like what we just showed you with the CEO of DBS Bank. Because he's very openly saying, look, bonds are trash. Look what Bitcoin returned me. It returned me 300%. It's outperformed everything. I mean, there is no second best. It really is as simple as that. So that's what's going on in Singapore right now. Now, again, Singapore is very interesting. If Singapore's largest bank has a CEO uber bullish on Bitcoin and they're openly adopting Bitcoin, let's not forget this chart right here shows that Singapore's sovereign wealth fund is enormous. They have a government investment corporation, GIC, on the right-hand side of this chart that has a $545 billion sovereign wealth fund. And they have another one called Temasek. It's also a Singapore sovereign wealth fund, $484 billion in size. Kind of similar to China, who also has 2 sovereign wealth funds in their country. How long until the sovereign wealth fund of Singapore puts Bitcoin in there amongst the $1 trillion of assets that they do have? Who knows? Maybe they'll get the chance to back up the truck and buy some Bitcoin when we fill the CME gap at 77K. I'm not sure if I agree with you there, Renee. Again, I'm not saying it's a 0% probability, but we have heard a lot of these CME calls for a long time come and go. I don't necessarily believe we filled every single CME gap. Correct me if I'm wrong in the chat, but I believe there's some CME gaps that are still left wide open. Would love to be corrected if that is true or untrue. But I want to talk a little bit more about what else seems to be spreading in the region of Asia. There's actually so much happening in Asia, I probably can't even do it all in one video. I really don't think I can do it justice. I want to talk about what's happening in India, the world's largest country by population, in a moment. Bill D says Singapore Femex, great exchange. From memory, Femex is a little bit of a shitcoin exchange, so maybe that's a seamless transition to maybe give you guys a little bit of a better option. Before we talk about India, if you are being subjected to using Femex or any other shitcoin exchange, why don't you check out what the Bitcoin Well is doing? They are a Bitcoin only exchange, which is why me and my boy Green Candle are pretty happy to have partnered with the Bitcoin Well. And that's not the only thing we like about the Bitcoin Well. They also force their customers to learn about self-custody. They don't take self-custody of your Bitcoin. Naturally, we are self-custody maximalists here on the channel. So that's why we really like what the Bitcoin Well is doing. Not only do they force you to use self-custody, but they even have a very, very unique service if you are a high net worth individual looking to buy over $50,000 of Bitcoin over the counter. They have a white glove concierge service. So definitely check them out if you want to learn more about that white glove concierge service. That's a mouthful from time to time. But there's a link down below in the description for you guys to check out what the Bitcoin Well is doing so you can avoid the shitcoin exchanges, because there are many of them. And I also always encourage you guys, once you've gone and bought your Bitcoin from the Bitcoin Well, why don't you secure it the way it should be secured? And that is in a Bitcoin hardware wallet with those 12 or 24 words backed up on titanium. You can get some really, let's call them groovy titanium plates from Stampseed. They create the industry standard Bitcoin storage solution. As you can see, very easy to use. You can bang those 12 or 24 words into a nice little piece of titanium with what I like to call Thor's hammer. If you guys haven't seen Thor's hammer, I just snuck off shot there. We can see that is Thor's hammer. These are the plates that you can get from Stampseed. Highly recommend you check them out. If you have a hardware wallet, but you don't have your 12 or 24 words backed up on titanium, I have to ask you, what are you doing? Check out Stampseed. You get a 15% discount off anything you want to buy with a promo code Luke15. Look at me, boy. Look at me, boy, Brandon blowing me up in the chat. Even Luxito. So we are both trying to learn Spanish. Cito at the end of anything, any name or any word means small. Even little Luke with his tiny arms can't make a dent in those. Fucking unbelievable. He's in the background chirping me in the kitchen and in the live chat. I'm telling you, anybody can make a dent into those titanium plates. Anybody. You're just going to have to take my word for it. Before I get on to India, you know what? I'm going to jump into India. There's some more interesting comments I want to get to in the chat. But before we get there, let's talk about what the world's largest country seems to be doing. So we now have a company called JetKing in India adopting Bitcoin. Another influential country in Asia. Do you start to see the dominoes I'm laying out here? Singapore, the country with the third highest GDP per capita in the entire world, looks to be making a little bit of a move into Bitcoin. One of their most influential, well, their biggest bank has a CEO who's bullish on Bitcoin. And now we have India's very first public company embracing a Bitcoin treasury strategy. Now, let's not forget, India is the biggest country by population. In a very big way. Look at that. They got a 1.429 billion person population. They're huge. They're massive. They've got one of the best demographics in the world. And this is naturally bringing people from all around the world to check out what is happening in India. India is a really interesting, let's call them case study as well, because they do have such a growing population and they are all very, very tech savvy. So I don't think it's any surprise that Bitcoin does take hold in a pretty big way in India. India also is a little bit of an interesting example because India, they were trying to ban Bitcoin a little while ago. And they've actually even thought about the possibility of rolling out a CBDC. If it sounds crazy, check out what I've got on screen. India mulls new crypto ban to support CBDC. That's right, they have had multiple bans in India. And they're very similar, let's say, to China in the respect that they're always flip-flopping on their decision. So who really knows what is going on in India? This is a really cool little graphic that I was trying very hard to find the high quality version of in the background here for you guys. But have a look at the amount of flip-flopping we see. 2013, 2014, 2017, 2017, 3, 4, 5 different events happening in 2018. So we can see there's a little bit of a flip-flopping story that there is in India. Speaking of flip-flopping, there's a comment in the chat, volatility equals life, leverage equals death. I tend to agree with that. I think that is very true. Leverage is dangerous. I always encourage people to stay away from leverage. Keep it simple. Buy the dip. Life just becomes so much more stress-free when you're not trying to trade this chart right here, which as we can see is incredibly volatile. This is the price of Bitcoin. Have a look. Now I want to show you something. This is a visualization of the traders getting wrecked. Bitcoin's just kind of like ping-ponging between this, we'll call it 106K level, and we'll call it, what do we call that? A 91K level. Each time it ping-pongs from the top to the bottom, to the top, to the bottom, to the top, and then to the bottom of this range. All these leverage traders getting absolutely wiped. They're getting carted out. They're not doing too well for themselves. So I tend to agree with UWU's comment in the chat. Just zoom out, ignore the volatility, buy Bitcoin, relax, chill. Life gets better when you just buying, stacking, and chilling. As my friend Sean would say from Australia, life is a whole lot less stressful when you're buying, stacking, and chilling. Apparently, I'm resorting to all sorts of interesting realms, let's say. Jimmy says my eyes are always red. What do you guys think? Are they red? I actually have something in this eye yesterday, so they might actually look red today, but I don't think they're that. Sometimes they're red, sure, but I think I'm just an old bastard. But Jimmy says my eyes look red. Well, the reason I have the glasses on today, they might be red because of the shades, but the reason I have the glasses on is because we are trying to not avoid pink eye like my boy Brandon has suggested is happening in the chat. The reason why we've got the glasses on is because we're looking after our health over here in Lima, Peru. Again, if you guys are also interested in looking after your health, it's actually a seamless transition to telling you guys about crowd health. So again, I always tell you guys, be very careful. There's a lot of scams in the health insurance industry. That's why I've partnered up with Crowd Health, Bitcoin-backed health insurance company. Again, there's a lot of scammers. A really simple heuristic to filter out the scammers is to just look for Bitcoin companies. This is why I really like what Crowd Health is doing. Crowd Health is even giving you guys an absolutely massive discount if you use a promo code green candle. That promo code will get you a massive discount on your first 3 months with Crowd Health. It will only set you back 99 big ones for your first 3 months. So check those guys out. Bill D. Well, this is a conundrum that I'm currently faced with. Is Bitcoin a good gift for Valentine's Day? Bitcoin is the best gift of any day. It doesn't matter if it's Navidad, that's Christmas in Spanish, whether it's a cumpleaños, that's a birthday in Spanish, or whether it's Valentine's Day. Don't ask me what that is in Spanish because I have no idea. But what I will tell you is that Bitcoin is the gift that keeps on giving. Again, teaching someone about money is the most important thing you can do. It's the only thing we're not taught about in school. So yes, Bill D, it's a great comment. It's a great question. Bitcoin is an incredible gift for Valentine's Day. Green Candle says Valentine's Day is the worst day. Too many to please. I love that. If only I was faced with that problem. I think countries that are beginning to realize that maybe, just maybe, Bitcoin is the gift that keeps on giving, and maybe, just maybe, Bitcoin is the best gift on Valentine's Day, looks to be India and Singapore, two of the most influential countries there is, not only in Asia, but also the world. So I hope that little update on what is happening with India's first public company adopting Bitcoin and what is going on at that closed door meeting where the CEO of a $368 billion giant of the DBS Bank, the largest bank in Singapore. I hope those are a couple of events for you guys to keep your eye on. Regarding Asia, I might be going live in about an hour or so to talk a little bit more about the world's third largest country and what's going on over there. But with all that said, we got 520 of you guys tuning in between YouTube and Twitter. I'm going to end this one right here. Thank you so much for everyone who tuned in. I will see you all in the next live stream.